Today's presentation is Chatbot Technology, the Innovative Enterprise Solution. My name is Lindsay Locke. I'm Pluralsight's Webinar Program Manager. I'll be your host for today, and I'm here if you have any questions about the webinar recording, future webinar topics, or anything related to the presentation interface. Our presenter today is Pluralsight author Matthew Krusek. Matt is a senior software developer at Talon. He has extensive experience in the software industry and is responsible for creating and maintaining any and all architectures and strategies pertaining to the mobile, web, and AI disciplines. He has architected and developed several end-to-end line-of-business applications using a variety of Microsoft technologies, including WCF, WPF, ASP.NET, C#, VB, MVC, SQL Server, Microsoft Bot Framework, and Entity Framework. We're happy to have him presenting today, and I'll turn things over to Matt in just a few moments. So as you watch Matthew's presentation today, you'll notice that there is a chat box feature to the bottom left of your console, just to the left of where these slides are being displayed. Please use that to send us questions during today's presentation. We'll get to those after all of Matt's slides, and we'll try to answer as many questions as possible. Also, we are recording today. Once we have everything finished and published to our website, we'll send everyone an email where they can access the recording and watch it later. Let's do a quick audio check and make sure everyone has their speakers turned on as well. So the sound should be coming from your computer speakers. If you're having any audio problems, if there's any delay or buffering, please try refreshing your browser. Make sure you have the latest version and you're up to date on that. We found that Chrome tends to work best, Firefox. There are certain versions of Internet Explorer that tend to experience problems. Also, if you have a poor internet connection, if you have the ability to connect to a hard line, that tends to help as well. And then send us a message if you're having any problems hearing anything, or if you have any issues with seeing any of the visuals, just send me a message in the chat box and I'll try to help you out. We are running a contest for everyone that is watching this live. We're giving away 1 free month of training to 1 lucky winner. Follow us on Twitter. Our handle is @Pluralsight, and then tweet about the webinar and use the hashtag PluralsightNow. We'll pick 1 lucky random winner and give away 1 free month of training with Pluralsight. If you'd like to contact us outside of the webinar, that's the email address you can reach us at. Let us know if there are other events you'd like to hear about, or other subjects you'd like to hear about in the webinar series, or if you have any questions or concerns. So you'll notice a few things on your screen in addition to the chat box where you can send questions to Matthew. You can minimize or expand the presentation window. There are some downloads like Matthew's latest course and some other resources we think you might find helpful. You can learn more about the presenter. You can follow us on social, and then at the very end of the presentation, before you leave, a survey will pop up. It's super short. We'd love to hear from you and get some feedback on other webinars that you'd like to see us present on. And with that, I'm going to hand everything over. Let's watch Matthew's presentation, and then we will open everything up to questions at the end. So thank you for listening.
Hi, my name is Matt Krusek, and I want to welcome you to this webinar on Chatbot technology. I am a practice director here at Talon, and it's my job to keep up on the current trends in technology in the area of AI and cognitive services. It's my goal today to help introduce you to some of the concepts surrounding chatbots and how they can help you in your business. So by now you've probably all heard about the buzz surrounding chatbots. It's a technology that has garnered a great deal of attention in the last couple of years. From retail to customer service, companies worldwide have been pouring tons of investment dollars into this technology to help build their businesses. However, it may surprise you to know that the idea of chatbots has actually been around for a while now, with the first chatbot ever coded being invented way back in 1966. So given this technology has been around for so long, why has it taken nearly 50 years for it to go mainstream? Well, there has been a lot of hurdles that we've had to overcome in order to get to where we are today. The first and most difficult hurdle was simply that the technology wasn't there yet. In order for chatbots to be truly effective, they needed to be able to have an intelligent and meaningful conversation with another person. Now, up until recently, the areas of natural language processing and artificial intelligence just weren't mature enough to easily allow for such an interaction to occur. Now, with the most recent advancements in these areas, chatbots are more human-like than ever. The next hurdle was that there just wasn't enough areas that this technology could be utilized effectively. Now, in the early 2000s, email ruled the day. It was the de facto way for people to communicate with each other. Sure, there were chat applications like AOL Instant Messenger, but that hadn't really gone mainstream yet. The medium itself was still trying to spread its wings and find its place in the world. But nowadays, chat applications are everywhere. From Slack to Facebook, people are saturated with the amount of options they have for communication. And not just text-based communication either. One of the additional ways chatbots can be utilized is through voice-based communications. Things like Siri, Cortana, and Alexa all have the capacity to be channels that can be tapped into in order for companies to get their message out there. And with all of these mediums comes the opportunity for businesses to reach a much broader audience. Now finally, one of the last hurdles standing between this technology and success was its lack of investment from the big players. Up until recently, most of the chatbot and AI software available was either made by small niche companies, making their support and longevity suspect, or they were extremely specialized instances that weren't made available to the general public. However, with the entry into the game of big players like Microsoft, IBM, and Facebook, this has all changed. Not only did this mean this technology was readily available, but it was also backed by companies that ensured that using it wasn't so much of a gamble. So what are some of the advantages to utilizing bots in your business? Well, first and foremost, bots allow you to better serve your customers. Imagine a scenario where we could actually sit next to one of your clients as they browse your website, being able to immediately answer any questions they may have and directing them to relevant places on your site that you want to get noticed. Now, imagine you could take that personal experience and do it for every one of your clients all day, every day. That is the power of bots in the realm of customer engagement. Now, do you remember a couple years ago when you kept hearing that phrase, there's an app for that? It seemed like having an app that represented your business was this must-have commodity that everyone was clamoring for. But what's the problem with having an app? Well, first and foremost, they're very specialized. I remember a few years ago I was taking a flight out to visit a client and I was flying American. Now, I usually fly Delta, so my smartphone is all set up for that. I have the Delta app, I know my way around it, I have all my information entered, but this time I was flying American. So what did I have to do? I had to download the American Airlines app. I had to figure out how to use it. I had to enter all my information. And since I haven't flown American Airlines since, I now have this app that sits completely unused on my phone. I had to spend all that time and effort downloading the app, figuring it out, and entering information, all for about 5 minutes of actual usage. The beauty of chatbots is that I can get the same user experience without all the overhead, because the tools I need to access that information I already have on my smartphone. For example, if I did a poll of everyone on this call and asked how many people have Facebook installed on their phone, I'd venture a guess that it would be almost everyone. And if you do have it installed, guess what? You can access my chatbot. And even better, because it's a simple question and answer interface, there's a zero learning curve. So that barrier of entry of getting people to download your app, use your app, and keep it relevant enough so that people will actually keep your app on their phone is now gone. The last main advantage that bots offer is this idea of reaching a broader audience. In this arena, chatbots have a lot of things going for them. First of all, chatbots by nature are mobile device accessible, which is fantastic because we all know that everyone owns a smartphone, and most people do the majority of their internet browsing via that smartphone. Secondly, chatbots are harnessing the power of the medium of the millennial generation. Right now, 11% of the world's population utilize Facebook Messenger monthly, and that's just one of the many mediums out there right now. With chatbots, there's no infrastructure to build. It's already in place. It's just about tapping into it. And these three things are just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to some of the advantage of utilizing chatbots. However, even with all the advantages that chatbots offer, I know many of you out there are thinking, yeah, but is the world ready to start mainstream use of this technology? Well, let's look at some facts. Nearly 6 in 10 people will be willing to communicate with chatbots to receive offers, coupons, or recommendations. So what does that tell us? It tells us that more than half of our audience is willing to take a chance on this technology. Even more interesting is that 29% of people say that online chat and messaging apps are their preferred method of communication. This means that almost 30% of your audience would rather use a bot than traditional methods of communication. So not only are they willing to try it, but it's actually better than the alternative. But probably the most interesting fact of them all is this one. More than 37% of Americans are willing to make purchases using a chatbot. Now, I don't know about you, but this is probably the most telling statistic for me. Because I'm one of those people that's pretty paranoid when it comes to online shopping, but the sheer fact that 37% of Americans have that much faith in chatbots that they're willing to purchase products through it should tell you that this technology is ready for prime time. So it's time to ask that age-old question, what's in it for me? Why do I, as an executive, want to invest time, money, and resources into implementing this technology? What are the areas of opportunity for bots in my business? Now, believe it or not, this slide was one of the hardest for me to put together because there are just so many applications for this technology, I had to pick and choose which ones to showcase. But here are some examples of the things we're currently seeing in the marketplace. First and foremost, the easiest application of this technology is in the realm of customer service. We're already seeing a lot of these types of chatbots in the wild. Chatbots that can help your existing customer service representatives with some of the more repetitive requests that they are seeing, freeing them up to answer more of the in-depth questions. Now, speaking of in-depth questions, have you ever had that experience where you call up customer service and you go through this whole verification process to prove you are who you really say you are? Then you describe your problem, and in the end, you end up being passed off to a completely new customer service rep where you have to do the whole process all over again. Well, this is another place where chatbots can help. Now, let's say you're chatting with a bot, and you end up needing to talk to a customer service rep to solve your issue. Well, the bot can actually pass any information that it's already gotten from you over to that customer service rep so that you don't have to re-enter in all that data. In this way, your chatbot stays with you throughout the whole experience, helping to document your problem and ultimately to solve it. Now, the next area of opportunity is one that's more up and coming, and this is the idea of chatbots helping us with our e-commerce business. Now, some of the applications that I've seen in this area are things like personal shoppers. For example, I always do the bulk of my Christmas shopping on Amazon.com. And one of the things that's always tough for me is trying to find things that I think my wife and my kids would like. Usually I end up just throwing in a couple keyword phrases into the search bar and I browse around until I find something. But wouldn't it be cool if I could converse with a bot like I would another person? I could tell it some of the things that my wife is into, and it in turn could lead me to different products she might be interested in. This could serve two purposes. Not only could it help the consumer, in this case me, find something they were looking for, but it could also help steer customers towards the items that you as the business want to sell more of. Which leads me into the last area of opportunity, which is brand awareness. Now, right now, how do we as a business inform people about our brand or new products from our brand? Well, there's the old standby of print media. Maybe you send your consumers a flyer or advertise through a magazine. But that kind of media is very impersonal, right? You cast this wide net and you hope people pay attention. Another method, email. But email is one of those things that's so easy to ignore, right? It's almost as though going through an email is too much of a time investment for us to look at. But let's say instead of an email, you had your bot send your consumer a message through Facebook Messenger or a text message. Something super quick just to say, hey, I saw you were browsing for pants the other day. Did you know we're running a sale on pants this week? That way, you can not only make the message more personal, but you can also do it in a very non-intrusive way. So it's less like an advertisement and more like a friend telling you about a really cool deal. And these are just some of the different areas where chatbots can help influence your business. With all this opportunity, how do we get a handle on which path to take? Well, one of the ways is to look at some of the various categories that chatbots live in. Identifying which value category best matches up with your specific area of opportunity will allow you to have a much more clear vision of what features you should be making available in your bot. So most bots fall into one of four value categories: simplification, enhancement, influence, and engagement. These categories are meant to represent what specific value the chatbot's trying to convey to the user. Let's start with simplification. Now, these kinds of bots are meant to take a complex or arduous process and make it easier. For example, Domino's has a bot that allows you to order a pizza by simply messaging the word pizza to it. Now, by doing this, Domino's has created a service that allows for a much faster ordering experience, and thus causing more people to utilize it. The second chatbot value category is enhancement. These types of bots are meant to bring additional value to an existing process. An example of this is the British Airways bot. Now, in addition to booking flights, this bot provides suggestions on places to go, offers deals and recommendations, all tailored to the user. It goes well above and beyond just simply purchasing an airline ticket. It helps to enhance the experience with other functionality. Next up are the influence bots, or as I like to call them, the retail kings. Now, these types of bots are mainly getting you to buy something through the information that it either already has about you or is gathered over the course of the conversation. I call these the retail kings because that is the vertical they are most often found in. A good example of this is the H&M bot, which will ask the user questions about their various clothing preferences and then use that information in order to try to get the user to buy their product. And finally, you have the engagement bots. The job of these bots is to provide useful pieces of information in the hopes of engaging their audience. This engagement can lead to other things like potential product and services sales. An example of this is the Health Tap bot, which allows users to query a database of medical information. Now, all in all, when thinking about what kind of bot you want to provide your users, this should be the first thing that you decide on. So let's take a look at some examples of companies that are currently using chatbots successfully. This is an example from American Express. Here we have a great example of a customer service application with a smattering of brand awareness. Now, what American Express did was to expose out some quick pieces of information like card usage and balances to the user, while at the same time upselling some of their affiliate products. This was a smart application of chatbot technology because it helped a customer problem of being able to get an important information quickly and easily, all while leveraging that relationship to execute some clever product placement. Here's another good example from Tommy Hilfiger. They too utilize chatbots to help advertise their products. They even go so far as to offer in-message purchasing options, meaning that if you want to buy something that you're talking to the chatbot about, you can simply do it right there in the chat without having to click out to another screen. Just like most other things, chatbots are best when paired with other pieces of technology. For example, imagine a scenario where you can have your chatbot automatically create entries for leads in your CRM system based on the conversations with clients. You could even import the entire chat history into the lead, so your salespeople could know exactly what transpired in the chat and be ready with that information on a follow-up call. Additionally, one of the great things about chatbots is their ability to gather data. Data like what products your customers are interested in, what their feelings are about your company, and how many conversations are being had with your customer base on a daily basis. Now, in order to take full advantage of that data, it makes sense to want to display it in a well-thought-out and orderly fashion, which is where Power BI and Tableau come in. With these tools, you can see at a glance how your bot is performing and what aspects of your businesses need attention. Finally, you're going to need a place to host all of these great bots. And what better place than the cloud? With services from Microsoft and Amazon, DevOps becomes vastly simplified. Coupled with its ability to scale on demand, deploying to the cloud is quickly becoming the standard instead of the exception. I also wanted to take a moment and mention some of the other great resources available to you in the realm of AI. Microsoft has a suite of cognitive services that can help to greatly enhance your bot's effectiveness. Things like image recognition, sentiment analysis, and natural language tools that all help to give your bots better intelligence. To be truthful, I could probably do another entire webinar on just this suite of tools, so you definitely should check them out. So by now, hopefully, I've convinced you that this type of technology is something you want to invest in, but maybe you don't know exactly where you should begin. One of the things that we do at Talon is to guide our clients through this experience. We do this by asking very specific questions about your business to help you find the sweet spots. For example, one of the easiest avenues of approach is to look at your existing website. Are there certain areas of your website that are high-value, low-traffic areas? Like I demonstrated earlier, one of the things that bots are great at is guiding your customers towards the things you want them to notice. Another piece of low-hanging fruit is identifying which pieces of quick data points can be exposed to make your chatbot that much more enticing. Think about the American Express bot and being able to check your balances without having to browse a website or download an app. These types of things are easy ways to get people using your bots so you can start to harness that attention and leverage it for future sales opportunities. If you're looking for information on how to develop these types of applications yourselves, then there's no better place to start than Pluralsight. There are 2 courses specifically around this type of technology. One course is a course that I authored called Getting Started with Building Bots with Microsoft's Bot Framework. This course focuses around Microsoft's SDK for building bots, which is a very rich and robust kit that I would very much recommend taking a look at if you're interested in this technology. The other course is called Developing Alexa Skills for Amazon Echo, which focuses on the Amazon stack and building chatbots for Alexa. Although these mediums are different, the terms and ideas are very much the same, so some of the information you learn from one course could easily translate over to the other. Finally, I added some links on both the Microsoft and Alexa development homepages, as well as a link to the Microsoft Cognitive Services APIs. All are very good resources to use when building bots. I hope that you've enjoyed this webinar and at least gotten you excited about how chatbots can be utilized to accelerate your business. I'm going to open up the floor for questions now, but just in case I don't get to yours or you think of something you might want to ask me later, I have posted my Talon email address on this slide. I would love the opportunity to talk with anyone more on this topic and to help you find those parts of your business that bots can be effective. Thank you.
Okay, thanks everyone for joining us, and thank you, Matt, for that awesome presentation. We're going to open up the floor now to questions. Hopefully everyone is able to submit their questions through that chat box. It's to the left of your screen like we mentioned before. So let's take a look at these questions here real quick. Matt, do I still have you on the line?
Yep, I'm here, Lindsay.
Great, okay. So we had a question come in here, and I'm going to read this out to you, and I'm going to try to push this to the screen so everyone can see it. So hopefully you can see this. The question that came in asks, are there dev platforms, not just message-based, that would allow a company to build a proprietary private set of voice-based chatbot services that focus on a single vertical market industry? And if so, what are some examples?
Okay, thanks, Lindsay. Yeah, so there are definitely a lot of dev platforms out there. One of the ones that I mentioned in the webinar was the Microsoft Dev Platform, the SDK, Microsoft Bot Framework. Like I said, Amazon also has the same set of type of technology through Alexa. IBM has another set of AI type of development kits that they're working on. So as I said, there's a lot of people from the big players that are starting to really dip into this technology. The one, again, that I focused on was Microsoft because it's something, we at Talana are a Microsoft partner, so they tend to be the people that we do the most amount of development with. That doesn't mean that there aren't other platforms out there for this type of development. And again, there are some more smaller development shops that are doing these same type of AI work. One of the things that I will touch upon your question is if you want to build a private set of voice-based chatbot services, you don't have to publish your chatbot out to the world, right? A chatbot is really just an endpoint, okay? And you secure that endpoint via API keys, right? So not just anybody can hit your endpoint and ping your chatbot with questions. It's once you publish it out to the channels that it really becomes available for public consumption. So if it's something that you want just your specific company to be able to access, you can publish it privately. And you could do it in a voice command through something like Skype, right? So I can, through Skype, use an IVR system inside Skype to ask Skype voice questions that will then attach itself to a bot and go through the bot service. So hopefully that answered your question. If it doesn't, hit me again and we'll do a follow-up.
Great, thanks. So we had another question that came in. How can we make sure that Microsoft Bot Framework is secure if we have to use their bot connector?
Great question. Actually, I've had this exact same question with a couple of different clients that I've worked on trying to do this type of technology. So we have actually gone through a process of doing a full security audit of the whole transaction, and we have contacts at Microsoft that we've had specific conversations around this, and that whole bot connector is all secure. So it's been verified by actually the work that we did was for a credit bureau. So we've actually gone through that whole scenario before. So it has been verified as secure. Your data isn't being sent across the wire unsecurely. So I definitely see the necessity to ask that kind of question, but it has been vetted and it's definitely secure.
Great. Here's a question that came in about the difference between a chatbot and a personal assistant. Are these the same thing?
Okay, great question. So I addressed this specific question yesterday in a presentation that I was giving. So if you think about it like this, think about it as Alexa and Siri are kind of these super chatbots where they have the ability to do multiple different functions. And an Alexa skill or a specific chatbot feature are it's a very specific bot about something. So if you think about how Alexa works, you have to you start it out with a trigger word, right? You say, hey Alexa, or Alexa, and that turns on Alexa. And then you have to mention what skill you want to access. So let's say I have 100 skills that's possible through my Alexa. Each one of those skills is a chatbot that it works on just its specific instruction set. So if I say, hey Alexa, ask Fandango to book me 2 movie tickets to the new Fast and the Furious movie, right? So I'm accessing the Fandango bot there. So if you can think of Alexa as the personal assistant piece, which can do multiple things, but the Fandango bot as something very specific to that vertical. So it's kind of a smaller subset.
Okay, we have a follow-up question here. Assuming we wanted to ultimately publish the functionality to consumers of our products, but didn't want to use Hey Cortana, Hey Alexa, or Hey Siri, where would we go to develop our own proprietary systems?
Okay, so you can develop stuff like that very easily. The problem with doing something like that is that you have to house it in some kind of channel, right? So a way that you might go about doing that is, let's say that you have an iPhone app, and through that iPhone app, you can do voice-based communication. We've built proof of concepts like this before, where I can use a software like Dragon Dictation to get text-to-speech, right? And then I can funnel that through my bot. The problem with doing it that way is now you are very limited in the medium that the person has to use to interface with your specific bot. The advantage to using Alexa or Cortana or Siri is that you have that super bot, right? So if you think about it from the superbot and the subbot example again, you are now going directly against the subbot. So you have to in some way expose that subbot out to your audience. A typical way is through an app or through some kind of web interface, if you want to just do voice. Otherwise, you're going to have to use some sort of mechanism that either Microsoft or Amazon or somebody else has already put in place.
Lots and lots of great questions coming in. Please keep them coming. If we don't get to all of your questions, we promise that we will send them to Matt after the webinar, so please keep them coming. So here's a question. Is there a standards or a control board to ensure unique name for my chatbot?
So it depends on the medium that you're publishing in, right? So for example, if I wanted to publish a chatbot through Microsoft's SDK, Microsoft actually has a bot portal where if you want to publish a bot, basically you're publishing a bot endpoint. And that name for that bot has to be unique. But then that bot can then connect to several channels. So let's say I have a bot called Matt's Bot that I've published, okay? There can't be any other Matt's Bot out there. But I can have a Matt's Bot Facebook page and a Matt's Bot Slack app and a Matt's Bot SMS, right? So it's all about the channel that you publish on. So it depends, again, how your audience is getting to it. Your audience does not care that up in Microsoft's cloud that there's some Matt's Bot, because that's not how they're going to access it. They're going to access it through SMS, through your Facebook page, through stuff like that. And any restrictions that are already in place with those channels, that's the stuff that you're going to have to overcome. So obviously if you go to create a new Facebook page, you can't name it something that's already out there, right? So you have to utilize the medium. It's all about what medium you publish on.
Okay, great. Here's a question. What would be the basic things I need to consider if I'm going to develop a chatbot based on machine learning? Security measures should we take? And then it looks like the second half of that question got cut off. So what would be the basic things we need to consider developing a chatbot based on machine learning?
Okay, so this is what I always tell my customers about machine learning. So machine learning is all about data. Okay, and being able to, the more data you have, the better. Because if you think about machine learning in a very simplistic example, if I have, say, 100 documents sitting on my desk, and I have to teach the machine, out of these 100 documents, these 10 contain the things that I actually care about, right? So if I give it another 100 documents, it uses that first set of data as an example to try to make its best guess on its second set of data. So the more data you can give it and the more examples you can give it of what you're looking for, the better. Now, as far as how machine learning works with bots, if you think about it, natural language is a subset of machine learning. And if you go to my course, I touch upon this a lot more when it comes to Microsoft's version of this, which is called LUIS. And what LUIS is the natural language understanding process, where I dictate, okay, here are some of the things that I want my user to be able to do when they interface with my bot. Let's say I'm creating a restaurant bot, for example. I want them to be able to reserve a table, find out what the hours of operation are, be able to ask about the menu. And in doing that, I then have to teach the bot what are some of the things people are going to ask in order to get to that intent, in order to get to that process. So I could say to the bot, what are your hours of operation? That's simple, right? That's easy. That goes to my hours of operation function. But I could also say, when are you open? Right? That's another way to say the same type of thing. And that's a way to do machine learning. I am giving the AI an example of what I need in order to get to the result that I'm looking for. So what you need to consider when it comes to this is, what is the data that you're pulling in? What is it you want to find out from that data? Like, what decisions do you want to be made from that data? Are you getting enough data? And then in terms of security, you have to be cognizant of what's the medium that you're communicating on. If it's Facebook, that stuff tends to be a little less secure than if you're doing SMS or if you're doing secure web chat. So what is the data you're gathering from your customers? And some customers, they are okay with giving personal data, and some customers aren't. So you have to take that in consideration.
Awesome. So I think we have time for just one more question here. I'm going to throw this one up. How do you see chatbots impacting future job roles and org structures?
So I think that there is, like kind of everything with technology that sits right there on the edge, there's this stipulation of like what we've seen on TV and what is occurring in real life. And I know that there's been a lot of discussion that I've read about, like, AI and bots, or they're going to be taking over my job, and I'm going to be out of work and stuff like that. And the way that I like to explain it is, don't think of it like that, because it's really not like that. It's more about how bots can help personnel to do their jobs more effectively, right? It's, when new technology comes out, there's always this scare that it's going to be something that puts people out of a job. But I think that in some ways you can't escape that. But in a lot of ways, it's about how can we then take that technology to help educate people to do their jobs better. Let me give you a perfect example. Customer service, okay? This is what I run into all the time when I talk to people about customer service and bots. They think, well, bots are going to replace all my customer service people, right? Not necessarily. If you think about it, bots, like that example I gave where the bot is helping the customer service rep to do their job better, you're not getting rid of your customer service person. You are helping them to be more effective. Whereas if you had 10 customer service people that were able to cover your whole center, you can now cover more calls with those same 10 people with these bots. So it's not about getting rid of 5 of them. It's about helping them to do their job better. So I think you need to see it more like that and less of it's going to replace people in the org structure.
Awesome. Well, I think that's all the time that we have today. We could probably go on for another 30 minutes with more questions, but unfortunately, I don't think that I can keep Matt here for another 30 minutes. I'd keep him here all day if I could. So I'm going to let Matt, if you have any closing remarks, anything you want to leave, any words of wisdom you want to leave the audience with before we go?
Thanks, Lindsay. Yeah, so there's one or two things I wanted to touch upon. There was one slide in here that I did mention, the Microsoft Cognitive Services. They are really things that enhance the chatbot model. And I would really, if you have any takeaway out of this presentation, it's not only look at the Microsoft stack, but look at what is available from the Cognitive Services stack, because it's something that can really enhance the experience. And I really was not embellishing when I said, when I think about all the applications of this technology, I have trouble figuring out where to start, because every client meeting I have, I literally think of another application that I hadn't thought of before. So you may be sitting there and thinking, well, I don't work with customer service, or I'm not in the e-commerce space, so this isn't for me. Trust me, there are a lot of applications of this technology that don't sit in those 3 spaces that I mentioned. So I would say, as advice to business people, take the time to really think about how this works. Whiteboard some ideas. Think about how it can affect your business. Feel free to send me questions. I'll be happy to communicate with anybody. If you want to, do some whiteboarding or whatever, I'm available. So that's what I would suggest. This technology is very powerful. It's up and coming. It's garnered a lot of buzz. And it's one of those things that if you don't jump on the bandwagon now, you're going to be left behind.
Awesome. And I had one final thing to say. There were a couple of comments that came in asking about the webinar recording and if you could access it later. The answer to that is yes, absolutely. We did record. We're going to share this recording with everyone probably next week after the 4th of July. We'll send an email out, and that will include the links to Matt's course and a link to the recording, along with any other helpful resources that we have to share with you. So hang tight. If you didn't catch the whole thing, we do have that. And with that, I'm going to wish everyone a wonderful day and thank everyone for joining us. And thank you, Matt.